Now, Axel, also you may say, which is of course obviously literally 50 years before Hitler came to power, Wagner had been dead. So his direct influence on Hitler was obviously not a physical, personal one.
First of all, was Wagner anti-Semitic? Yes, yes, and yes. As many people in his time, which doesn't make it better. And what kind of anti-Semitism was it? It was a personal anti-Semitism. He loved Meyerbeer.
Yes,
the Jewish composer
who helped him out in
Paris, who helped him out, who lent him money, everything. And then they got cross. And then he said, oh, Meyerbeer is horrible because he's a Jew. And then he wrote this polemic, Judentum in der Musik, Jews in the music. And this is a horrible writing. And yes, he wanted to eliminate all Jews. But then he wrote, and I agree completely with you, in his operas there's nothing from that.
And when you say eliminate, are you suggesting that he would have stood by the gas ovens of Auschwitz and cheered and clapped?
Would we? No, yeah. I don't like
you
these
mean
questions.
A sort of artistic ethnic cleansing?
But in his, I think in Wagner we can see the roots of anti-Semitism. It's not the fright of Jews or something,
no.
but it's a personal problem you have.
Yeah.
You don't have money, you don't have anything, so you blame someone, and you blame the Jews. And this principle was exactly the same later on, 50 years later. Yeah. And there was one opera, just one sentence, Parzival. There's this Kundry who laughed because of the crucifixion of Jesus. And what did Wagner write? She is Christianized in the end, and that's why Hitler didn't like this opera, because Wagner didn't send her to the gas chamber, but he Christianized her.
Right.
So, what do we think about it?
Yeah, it is. It's personal for me because I'm Jewish, and so a lot of my family have always questioned my love of Wagner. Do you think, without being parti pris here, there is a connection between the fact that certain kinds of really powerful politicians seem to be incapable of love anyway, so therefore it is not a problem for them? I'm not going to mention names like, but there are some who are considered narcissists, who are considered, ones who are very much in the public eye at the moment, for example, who probably have never seen Wagner, wouldn't be interested in Wagner, because for them there is no dichotomy between love and power. Power is everything. Is that a fair point, do you think, Axel?
I don't know whether I agree with you there.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to say the politicians, but I think if you're in public all the time, but you are a human being, you go home to your fricka in the evening, there is somebody waiting for you. You have to eat, you have to go to the bathroom, you have to do everything.
Damn good fricking.
Exactly, you have to do all these things. But everybody expects from you to save the world. And this is Wotan's problem. Wotan's problem is private, horribly private. And his wife and all people close to him tell him, come on, you can't rule like that. But he wants good. And it's his family he needs for that. He even creates a family to save the world.
So there are parallels, aren't there, which we're familiar with? The mafia family, for example.
Perhaps politicians can see Wagner gives us human gods, and considering gods are politicians. It was Patrice Chéreau who did this ring here in Bayreuth.
The famous centenary
exactly.
ring.
Yes, and it was people booing, booing, booing. What did he do? He didn't have beards for the god. He just put human beings on stage. And I think we are so sophisticated and always say, the politicians, but I think they go there and see, oh yeah, he sees what we are. We are as well human beings.
And politicians are manifestations of us.
Absolutely.
And in a sense, Wagner's journey as an intellectual, and for whatever reasons his intellectual reputation has been demeaned by his anti-Semitism, he was a great thinker and reader. He was a huge influence on Nietzsche, for example, and he was hugely influenced by Feuerbach and Schopenhauer and so on. He started off as a politician himself, in a way, as a red revolutionary who was on the run for a very long time. So
yes, and a man involved in the uprising of 1849, and for a long time, a lot of analysts believed that Siegfried is Bakunin, the great leader, and I personally think that's a pretty tenuous connection. Indeed, I think that the ring represents his escape from practical politics, if anything.
The first interpretation of the ring that I'm aware of that certainly had a great influence in the English-speaking world was that of George Bernard Shaw, the perfect Wagnerite. And he saw, for example, the famous Rheingold Rheingold, Rheingold, is a very simple two-syllable leitmotif,
right.
is inverted by the second scene of Rheingold, right. And becomes the straining work of the Nibelungen in, hammering away to get the gold for their industrialist master. And that was the interpretation, the socialist Fabian interpretation.
But isn't that interesting? We have a socialist who says the ring is socialist. Then we have Hitler talking about that. He says the ring is fascist because we have the apocalypse and Feuerbach, we have to erase the world to create a new one. So now the question, why is this opera open to all ideologies?
Yes.
And my, theory about that is Wagner didn't have an ideology. He had so many. He just had a private religion. He was a socialist, yes. He was a nationalist, yes, in the terms of, creation of
Germany.
He wanted to unite Germany. He was going for the money. He was Christian. He, in the end, was a vegetarian and loved Buddhism. So he put all this in one work, in the Ring of the Nibelung. And now we sit there and we can grab whatever we want. Yes. And however we look at it, it's like a picture of Picasso. It always looks different. It's a cubistic picture.
Well, I sometimes think it's like a great soup, and every time you dip your spoon, you get something different.
And who wants
comes
to be
up. But, exactly. Well, that's wonderful. Thank you very much, Matthew Dancano. I hope you get to enjoy the Wagner you see here. And Axel Brüggemann, we're going to see more of you later on, but thanks so much for your contribution. And what is Bayreuth? I mean, why do people go on about it? Why is there a 10, 15-year waiting list, Axel? What's your thought?
Well, actually, Bayreuth, I think, and the family Wagner is our monarchy. We don't have monarchs. We are a democracy now, but Germany was invented in the revolution of 1848. It was paid by Ludwig II, so the monarch who was to be
the King
out
of Bohemia.
Exactly. And then it was misused by Adolf Hitler, and now it's Angela Merkel, our chancellor, coming here every day. So it is really a mystic art which involves all changes of the nation. And I think if you want to see what Germany is with all its weirdness, then you have to come here, and you see that on stage every year as well.
And that's an interesting point, isn't it, Axel, that the great writers, Korngold and Steiner and Newman and so on, and Miklos Rozsa, all the great Hollywood Golden Age cinema, they were all Wagnerians.
Yes, Wagner wrote the soundtrack of Hollywood, basically. Lord of the Rings, I mean, it is Wagner.
And we might come on to the leitmotif later.
Exactly. But you were mentioning a good point. Why are we sitting here in suits? And it was... I wish to be here in the 19th century. It was Nietzsche here. It was Karl Marx here. I mean, it was always... the opera in Bayreuth was a mixed zone of high society and opera fans. And we must see that opera was no high culture at that time. It was the music of the time. Yeah. And I think it was always Wagner's intention to mix up people. Wagner thought that opera is the better politics. Politics is lying, opera is telling the truth. Music is the best way of expressing the men.
Yes, because he had tried politics after all, hadn't he? He'd been a friend of Bakunin, the famous anarchist, in Dresden in 1849, in the great year of uprising. So he knew a lot about red politics as it was being born.
This is the idea of the Gesamtkunstwerk.
Yes.
It's not just singing and music and stage. It is as well that the audience is part of the opera. So the opera, the plot of the stage goes into the world and changes the world. This is what Gesamtkunstwerk means. So he always intended us to... Hello there. Oh, this is a cute one, even though. His intention always was to change the world with opera. And I think this is what Bayreuth stands for, still up to now.
It's a funny thing, Das Rheingold, isn't it? It's the shortest by a long way of all the 4 operas of the Ring cycle, but it's the longest experience because it has no interval. So it's 2.5 hours on your bottom. The thing that I really objected to, and maybe it's just the actor part of me, is that there were cameramen on stage who were right in the faces of all the protagonists, and a screen through which you could see them in different rooms around this motel, this Texan motel on Route 66 where it's all set. And so I felt that the singers, who are actors these days, and most of them very good actors, were caught between 2 acting styles. Yeah. There's the camera up to their face, so they can't be a stage actor, But on the other hand, they are on stage, and so I felt they were caught between them.
Yeah, but I think, Wagner was a pioneer in all kind of techniques of theatre. And I don't think he would have opposed to that. I think multimedia we have now, and it has a meaning with Castor's Ring. I think because you see characters going off scene, going in this little chamber up there, and you see what is Wotan doing if he doesn't sing.
Yeah.
And for me, I think this is...
Well, what you're saying is important because the fact is we're talking about it. And that's what Wagner would most have liked, conversation about art.
Now, if I can't buy the idea of the director, I can't sell it because I don't believe in it or I don't think it's going to work. So on that way, and I just say, look, you have to sell it to me so I can sell it out there, and that's how I go forward. But sorry.
I was going to ask Axel, just a lot of us will say quickly and easily that Brunhilde seems a very modern type of heroine. Do you think that's a fair remark, or is it just a cheesy thing that people say?
Well, she's ambivalent. No, is she just a hero? I wonder. I mean, she is an aunt, first of all, for Siegfried. She is family. And does she just do good? Well, she talks to Wotan in the second act, and Wotan says, come on and take care that Siegmund comes up to us. And she says, no, my father. And then in the end, she's forced to do so. So there are other people who tell her what to do as well. And I think within the opera she becomes a hero. She develops. I mean, this is the interesting part about this role probably as well, because she has to develop. What is her position towards Wotan? What is her position towards Siegmund? What is her position later on to Siegfried? And what is her position to the whole world in the Twilight of Gods? Who is evildoer? Who is good doer? Whom do I? What do I do? I think this is a role which develops so much and which has so many facets, and in the music as well, and in a good Brünnhilde, which we see tonight in the voice as well. It's not just one Brünnhilde voice, is it?
No.
You make two enormous sacrifices. One is your own immortality as a divine being or a semi-divine being. You
see, I think that she's actually a timeless character. I think you could pick up this ring cycle and stick it anywhere in time. It's what I would say, it's a story of humanity. It's a story, I was saying with you the other day, that I believe that Wotan has the love of power, but he's taught Brünnhilde the power of love. And so you see these two, this dichotomy that's there. And this is why, because Brünnhilde has been taught the power of love, she questions. And I think that's, if you truly are on the humanity side, that's what people do. Everybody has a choice. They might not be good choices, but whatever happens in life, people have choices. There might be two choices between two good things, because does she choose what her father says, or does she choose not killing Siegmund because, you know, she knows there's consequences? And
one of the supreme ironies and emotional ironies of that is that you know, and Wotan knows deep down, that you're doing what he actually wants.
Exactly, and that's what she says.
He is constrained by his promises to Fricka and his oaths.
And you see, and that's very clear in the third act, because he sits on his pride. And I've just done a production where I found it very fascinating, and it was a female director, and she said if just one of these two people, Wotan or Brünnhilde, in that third act would go past their own pride, they would resolve the problem. And there was a point where she almost touches, no, I know I did the right thing. I know I did what you wanted. And
that's family business,
yes,
actually.
And he turns
around.
We
all know that from our
You knew what I wanted.
Yes, of course. I know that at home. I mean, I have got this situation in the kitchen every day, you know.
It's a very important point you made at the very beginning of this, where you said you could take this and place it anywhere because it's about
timeless,
timeless. And that's why Wagner chose mythology, because it takes it out of time.
And that's what Castor does as well.
Myth. Yeah.
That's what Castor does as well. I mean, we were on the Route 66, and we are in Azerbaijan.
I've heard, rumours that we're set in the Caspian wine wine growing, oil growing area.
Wine growing would be good as well.
Yes.
No, but today in the Walküre we are in Azerbaijan in the 19th century, you know.
Yeah.
And so what we have this Parzival sentence, zur Zeit wird hier der Raum, time becomes space, and all things, it doesn't matter where we are in time and where we are in location in city or town or on the world. And this is what happens in this ring.
Which I am about to witness for the first time of this production. So brace yourselves too for what, for many, is Wagner's finest work, Die Walküre.